2. The soul of man has knowledge of eternity itself. Though it may be observed, there is a great difference in its apprehension of an eternal past and of that which is to come. When it considers the former, it is soon at a loss, and at a full stop is obliged to return and cannot go on. It is like a bird that attempts to soar aloft and take flights it is not used nor equal to. It flutters and hangs its wings and is forced to descend. But when the soul fixes its thoughts on an eternity to come, how readily does it apprehend how that it shall proceed without end. With that pleasure does it roll over millions of ages in it. The reason of this difference is because the soul itself is not from eternity, but has a beginning, whereas it will endure to eternity and have no end. There is, Cicero says, though he knows not how it is, inherent in the minds of men a sort of augurium, soothsaying, divination, or foresight of future ages, and which chiefly and most easily appears in the greatest of minds and in the most exalted geniuses. There is in men a natural notion of futurity, a desire after it, and an expectation of it, which are things not in vain implanted in it, and would not appear if the soul was not immortal. It has knowledge of things past, present, and future, which proves its immortality. 3. The knowledge which the mind and understanding of man has of things in the present state is very imperfect through the brevity of life, and therefore it may be reasonably concluded there is a future state in which the soul will exist and its knowledge of things be more perfect. It has been a consent and continual complaint of the sons of the learned and science, ars longa vita brevis. Art is long and life is short. Man has not time enough to cultivate the knowledge he is capable of. It has been said it would require a man's whole lifetime, and that not sufficient, to get a thorough knowledge of that single mineral antimony. In any one branch of literature, any particular art or science or language, yet would his knowledge be imperfect, and room would be left for those that came after him to improve upon him. Arts and sciences have been cultivated many thousands of years, and in some ages great improvements have been made, and especially in the latter ones, and yet there is room for further improvement still. The knowledge of the best things which good men have is of God, of Christ, and of the mysteries of grace, is now very imperfect. Those that know most know but in part, and see through a glass darkly. But there is a state in which their souls will exist when they shall see God face to face, see him as he is, and know as they are known, when their minds will be employed on more noble and interesting subjects than now, and have perfect knowledge of them. 4. The knowledge the mind of man has of things now is not in proportion to the powers that he is possessed of. How many are there that die in infancy, and as soon as they are born, whose reasoning powers are never called forth into act and exercise? And how many die in childhood and youth before these powers ripen and are brought to any maturity? And how many are there that even live a long life, and yet, either through want of education or through their situation, circumstances, and employment in life, have not their faculties exercised in proportion to their capacities that they are endowed with? Now, can it be thought that these powers are bestowed upon them in vain? There must be, then, an after state in which the soul exists, when its powers will be employed in greater things and to nobler ends and use. 5. Let a man know ever so much in this present life, he is desirous to know more. Let his acquisitions of knowledge be ever so large. After a life of studious search and inquiry, he is not satisfied. He still wants to know more, and what he has arrived unto is only to know this, that he knows but little. Now, this desire of knowledge is not implanted in man by the author of nature in vain. Wherefore the soul must remain after death, when it will arrive to more perfect knowledge of things. That was the argument of Socrates used to prove to his scholars the immortality of the soul. But with respect to true good men, the argument receives further strength. They that know most of God, of Christ, and of divine things, they desire to know more. They follow on to know. They make use of all means to exercise their spiritual knowledge, and after all find it imperfect, and therefore are unsatisfied and long after a further state when all darkness and imperfection will be removed, and they shall see all things clearly. Now these gracious and earnest desires are not implanted in vain by the God of all grace, as they would be if the soul were not immortal. 2. The will of man is another faculty of the soul, the objects and acts of which show it to be immortal. 1. The will has for its object universal good. It naturally desires complete happiness, which some place in one thing and some in another, but it is not perfectly enjoyed by any. Some place it in riches, but find themselves mistaken in them, nor do they give the satisfaction expected from them. Some in the gratification of carnal pleasure, but these soon pale and perish with the using, and new ones are sought after. Some in enjoying posts of honour and in the applause of men, but these depend, the one on the pleasures of princes, by whom they are set in high places, and which become slippery ones, and others on popular breath, which is as variable as the wind. Some place it in wisdom, knowledge, learning, and science, which, as they are not only imperfect, but attract the envy of others, and as Solomon says, are vexation of spirit, and cause grief and sorrow. Ecclesiastes 1:17 and 18. Now there must be a future state in which true happiness will be attained, at least by some, or else the actings of the will about it will be in vain. 2. God is the summum bonum, the chief good, the will of man rightly pitched upon, nor can it be satisfied with anything less. Good men choose him as their portion, and which is the foundation of their faith, hope, love, peace, and joy. But then he is not perfectly enjoyed as such in this life. Their faith, expectations are that he will be their portion forever, nor will they be fully satisfied until they enjoy him as such in another world. Wherefore, in order to this, the soul must remain after death and be immortal. 3. The will has its desires, and which desires, even the best, are not satisfied in this life. Whatever it has, it is desirous of more. It is never satisfied. Its desires of knowledge, as we have seen, are not gratified to the full, nor its desires after happiness in general, nor even after God himself, the chief good, of whom the true good man says, "Whom have I in heaven but thee? And there is none upon earth that I desire besides thee." Psalm 73 verse 25. Which desires, unless there is a future state in which the soul exists after death and is immortal, are not fully satisfied, and so far in vain. 4. The actions of the will are free, not forced by any creature. No creature has any power over it to force it nor destroy it. Its acts are independent of the body. It can operate without it in willing, nilling, choosing, and refusing, and it can subsist and live without, and when that is dead. 5. The will is not weakened, nor indeed any of the powers and faculties of the soul impaired by sickness and approaching death. Though the outward man perish, the inward man is renewed day by day. How clear is the understanding! How active and vigorous the will of man on the verge of eternity! It appears by its willingness or unwillingness to die, to be free from the present pains and agonies, either by a restoration to health or by a removal by death, particularly by a good man choosing rather to depart to be with Christ, and even by his longing to be gone, saying, "Come, Lord Jesus, come quickly." Yea, when the body has become speechless and near expiring, the faculties of the soul are in exercise. A man understands clearly what his friends about him say, sign by the lifting up of the hand, signifying his faith, hope, joy, and comfort, all which show that the soul sickens not with the body, nor becomes languid as the body does, nor dies with it, though it may be cramped by it.